Bear with me 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
He's got to have a pee before we start the podcast.
No, I'm at a gas station getting something to drink.
How's the weather up there right now?
Cold.
Did you guys hear
as
the
long as
latest
you don't
news?
have to pull your rig over to go to the bathroom, we should be all right.
Well, I clearly can just leave my earbuds in.
Oh, we don't want to
Not
hear
candid.
that.
That's how you get canceled. Talking on a podcast while you're in your hand.
Welcome to the
You
Towing
have
Life
your-
podcast, where the ditches are deep.
Do it again. Do it again. She started right in the middle of it. That was awesome.
Shut up.
Hey everyone, I'm Brad from Calgary.
This is Sean from Cambridge, Ontario.
I'm Terry from Cornwall, Ontario.
Hey, this is Larry from Pitt Meadows, British Columbia, and you're listening to the Towing Life podcast.
Welcome to the Towing Life podcast, where the ditches are deep, the trucks are loaded, but the drivers are not. I am your host, TowManG, and as usual, I am joined by our wonderful producer, Sarah, who does everything in the background. And we also have on the phone today, PlainGuy. He is unable to make it home, so he is doing the show from the road because welcome to Canada and welcome to winter, and it's our busy season.
Absolutely. Sometimes we cannot make it to where we want to be to do what we want to do. If that isn't towing summed up, I don't know what is. So, how are you, G? How are you, Sarah?
I'm doing pretty good. I actually get to be home today and record this show properly, unlike some
Surprise,
people.
surprise.
Yeah, well, hey, look at you. Well, no one can actually see you today. They're just staring at my ugly mug and Sarah over there on the other side of the screen.
Well, I think this is good. Now audiences can actually believe us that you guys are tow truck drivers and we don't just sit behind our cameras and pretend we know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, if we pretended we knew what was going on, like if we were playing pretend, I would like to say that G gets an Oscar. He pretty much is pretending to be a tow operator, so I'm going to reach out and nominate him. No, this is about as authentic as it gets, driving down the highway, joining you guys on the phone today.
Yeah. Now,
What do you?
now, how
what
long
are you
is it
doing
till
today?
you get to your destination so we know how long the podcast will be?
I have about 45 minutes.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
we're going to put it in that window because once I get back, I'm going to be busy too.
Just asking you if you have your Bluetooth devices, your hands-free headset.
I do. I am driving completely Bluetooth, completely hands-free, completely distraction-free. No different
Completely
than
legal.
Completely legal. The last thing that we want to be is hypocrites. God knows I can be a hypocrite a lot of the times. So when it comes to safety on the highway and everything like that, it's something we don't mess around with.
Yeah, you're driving hands-free, which means you're driving with your knees.
Exactly. So before we get too far into it, it is a good time to mention, if you want, we always appreciate your comments, questions, concerns. There's multiple ways that you can reach out to us. You can visit us at www.towinglife.ca. You can visit us on Facebook at the Towing Life Podcast, and you can email us at thetowinglife@gmail.com. If you are watching over on YouTube, always remember to hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you really don't like what you're seeing, hit the thumbs down twice. Be sure to let YouTube know what you really think of us. English is hard once again today, even harder when you're driving down the highway trying to remember our social tags. Be sure to check over, there's big news over on the BakPul Hitch side on the towinglife.ca, as well as the merchandise. We have been working hard to add new lines. The Eat, Sleep, Tow, the I Live for This, the Dispatch. Fun fact, dispatching is like towing, except smarter. So be sure you can get any of the gear at www.towinglife.ca/shop. That's it for me, G. You guys take over back in the studio. I feel like a news anchor.
Well, thank you. We need some paper like that other the other show did. We need tablets in front of us. Oh, you've got the paper. I don't.
One of you guys is prepared for this show.
I have an
All
envelope.
right, so I'm going to take it away and talk about what happened on November 11th in London.
What happened?
So, what happened?
Yeah.
Here's the headline: London police investigating possible link between tow truck shooting and arson.
Again?
Yeah, I don't get what's going on in
Are
Ontario.
you sure this
anymore.
article isn't from like 2 years ago?
Yeah.
No,
Are they just
it's-
recycling it and throwing new cities in?
Yeah, because that's something that we would do, not mainstream news.
and on Remembrance Day, like the disrespect. But
Absolutely.
anyways, on Friday, November 11th, fire crews responded to reports of a blaze at a towing compound in the 0100 block of Clark Road at 6:15. Police said towing equipment was damaged in the fire and it was deemed to be suspicious in nature. One day later, on November 12th, police said a man was driving southbound on Adelaide Street approaching Osgood Drive. Forgive me, people in London. I didn't know that was a word. Osgood.
Sorry, they
In a
don't know how to read it either from London.
Osgoode. Osgood.
Osgood.
Anyway, Osgood.
Anywho.
Okay.
Anywho,
Locally owned tow truck. Police said the truck was followed by a rival tow company's vehicle, and once they passed Osgood Drive, one of the two people in the trailing vehicle shot the vehicle in front 6 times with a handgun. 5 rounds hit the tailgate of the truck, and the 6th round went through the rear windshield, according to the police. No injuries were reported.
was there someone sitting in the vehicle that got shot at?
Or they were driving down the road.
Oh,
This was like a high-speed chase, probably without the high speed, but
well, it's a good
Yeah,
thing
this
Buddy
is
doesn't
like-
have very good aim.
That's fair.
6 rounds go through tailgate and only 1 goes through the back glass of the window.
what's the motive there? Were they aiming to kill? Were they?
Well,
You'd have to
if you
assume.
shoot at someone, you kind of want them to be in forever sleep. We got to be careful
Yeah.
what we say because forever sleep is okay on YouTube. But
Oh, right. The D word might not go over well.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm in.
so, yeah.
So a
If-
21 and 25-year-old, both from London, have been jointly charged with a number of firearm offenses. They've been separately charged with offenses related to probationary breaches and failure to comply with the release order. So they're on probation, it sounds like. So this is
That's
the
it?
first offense.
For
Yeah, like,
attempted
what-
forever
got.
sleep?
What were the charges? What did they list the charges in that article? I know I'd read one that I think they did. It was all minor. It was like illegal possession of a weapon, maybe, improper discharge of a weapon. No mention of assault. No mention of attempted forever sleep. No mention of any of those things. Like it's so, like, it seems like such a light charges. Now maybe there's more to come, but 21 and 24 years old. I don't care how many points the body shop is giving you or what your kickback system is like. When you guys start shooting at each other going down the road, never mind the whole public interest, and safety in this one, you're willing to throw your life away for what? I mean, I'm dedicated to towing as much as the next guy. I'm not going to prison for it. That seems excessive.
The general motoring public is trying to kill us on a weekly basis, let alone each other shooting at each other. Like,
Exactly. There's enough things out there that are trying to kill us. Let's not add to the list by being the pissed off towing company next door. The arson, we've been seeing the arson for years. And, it's happened in my hometown, which is not like the big city. We've seen the arson and all that, and it's terrible, especially if it's smaller companies. If it's any company, it's terrible, let's be honest. But some of the smaller ones, like a 1-truck operation, a 2-truck operation, cannot operate their business. When their truck gets torched, they are stuck sitting there waiting for insurance to settle. Then, God knows in today's market, finding another truck
good luck.
to replace it, if that's the goal, I guess that's the goal, is to put them out of business. Clearly it failed. Clearly somebody got pissed off and decided to start popping off at each other in London of all places. Like I actually drove by London, I guess. I shouldn't say through. Yes, last week sometime. Let me tell you, it wasn't memorable. I didn't get into the city, but I can't see enough, the towing scene in London being worth it to start again shooting at each other and attempting to, put somebody in forever sleep, as she likes to word it. I'm gonna use that from now on in my life. It's gonna be forever sleep.
Do you think that maybe the stricter rules and regulations that the city of Toronto has put into place has pushed some of these more bad actors elsewhere, and that's why we're seeing some more bad characters in London and other areas?
100%. 100%. Whenever regulations and bylaw, even when it came down to the registration that Toronto had brought out, and I can't speak for other provinces. I don't know if you guys are facing these problems. I know on the national scale, everyone gets tired of hearing of Toronto because it's not the hub of the world. But when they had the licensing and stuff that came out, Ottawa really took on a lot of those bad actors, as you call them, because there was less regulations there. It was still a big enough city with less regulation. They moved their operation there to be able to, skirt and continue with their old ways. So I'm sure all that new stuff in Toronto, the OPP's new TSSO program and all that is having an effect in pushing these guys to the fringe towns. And I don't know, it could be two guys from Toronto that moved out there, or it could be a guy from Toronto pissing off a local. I don't know these gentlemen personally.
Well, I hope not.
Maybe I met one of them at one point. God knows I've had my fair share of encounters with bad towers. Maybe we've crossed paths at one time.
No matter how much you say I'm a bad tower, at least I'm not that level.
That you're shooting at people?
Yeah, I'm not shooting at people.
You would bring a lot more to the show if you did. I think you would bring a lot more to this show if you were popping off at people in your little 30 population town.
There's more than 30 people in my town, okay?
Think of the clout we could get. Local podcaster goes on shooting rampage, misses everyone. I don't want you to forever sleep anybody. I just want you to go to jail, spend a little bit of time, get the show some clout, and then come on out a free man.
So the next podcast that you'll see will just be Sarah on the screen, and then PlainGuy will be on the road again.
We can see if we can get some special permissions. I'll come visit you. We'll talk with you through the glass, like you see in the movies, and put you on the show that way. Come on, I'm in.
Will you put your hand up against mine?
Yes.
Perfect.
I think that would make great advertisement for the show. I am doing all of this for the show. It is nowhere for your personal gain. I'd like that pointed out.
So if I go to jail in the next year,
okay,
make sure you take a look at foul play and me being set up.
It's on the record.
Yeah, it is on the record. It is recorded.
Damn it. That's it. We can no longer release this episode.
So I have questions about this
Welcome to the Towing Life podcast.
Would you stop interrupting producer Sarah? You're terrible. Go ahead, Sarah. I got him under control.
Keep us on topic.
I know.
Because my understanding is London is not a big city by Ontario standards.
I'm not. Again, I've drove by it, but I don't know. Yeah, can you pull up the population? We can give you a reference.
Population of London, Ontario, not. London,
I feel like it's everywhere else. Yeah, so
400,000.
400.
So it's half the size of Ottawa.
And it's a quarter of the size of Toronto.
Yeah, so it's no fair-sized city. It's no slouch.
No, but does it really need to have this sort of towing community going on where they're so... Are they competing for customers? Or are they just all really mad at each other?
Well, I don't think it's even competing for customers, right? Every towing company competes to try and get their customer. They don't shoot each other. But whenever you're talking about, wrecks, and we've seen the lucrative business behind towing, right? Where it's, these guys are getting kickbacks from not just the body shops. They're getting kickbacks from the rental car companies, kickbacks from massage therapists or doctors' offices. They're getting kickbacks from...
the owner of said towing company owns all those other enterprises as well.
100%. So we're seeing that everyone seems to mistaken that, especially the general public, right? I don't know how many times I've been asked just by a customer, yeah, so you see those wars going on in Toronto? Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy, eh? They're fighting over a $500 tow. No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're fighting over a $2,000 tow, a $5, $6, $7, $8, up to $10,000 body shop claim. Those lawyer fee or legal fees, I'm sure probably are another thing they're in on, right? There's got to be some dickwad on a bus somewhere with, if you've been in an accident, call me, and the towing company guys are passing on the business to them. I feel like it fits with everything else they got their hands in. Yeah. So, that's what these guys are actually fighting about. Now, is it ever worth it to the point of, again, possibly going to jail for an extended period of time when you start shooting at people? No. But I hate to say it, these guys were on probation already. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying they make bad decisions. Yep. And clearly they have a streak of making multiple bad decisions because it wasn't the first time they've been in trouble.
Yeah, pulling a firearm on someone, that's more than just a bad decision on your part. Because you're driving, it's not like the guy came onto your property. No, you decided to pick up that firearm, put it in a moving vehicle, follow a guy, and then pull the trigger. There was ample time for them to say, hey, maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe we should just turn around. Maybe I should go throw this in a lake or hop in a boat and have a boating accident. Who knows? But no.
The only thing I argue with you is I got a funny feeling if we're dealing with this kind of situation, they didn't go and take the firearm and put it in the vehicle. I got a funny feeling it was already there.
Well, they had to put it in there first place.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. For protection at that point. That's the claim it's going to be. The firearm was for protection. We felt threatened as we were chasing the guy down the highway. That was like Mike Tyson getting charged years ago for beating up a guy in a hotel and saying he felt threatened. And it's like, you're the pound for pound, like, deadliest puncher in the world. And you were scared of this 5'9" guy that you chased through a hotel lobby? Come on. I don't believe it.
We do have some very strict firearm laws, so that will stick in court for them, so they probably won't be seeing the light of day once the court battle is done. But unfortunately, a lot of times they've got good lawyers, so they might be back out on the road. Hopefully they're not. Bad actors, ruin it for the rest of us. And unfortunately, I know I don't want to get shot at. That's for sure. I just want to do my job, and I enjoy doing recoveries. This is my season, right? I like towing.
You can't say that as you've been off for the first snow day of the year.
Yeah, well, that's just how the scheduling worked, okay?
That's what I call you being an actor and why I'm nominating you for a role in pretending to be a tow driver.
Get me a show or get me an episode on the Heavy Rescue show.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. They want real operators, I hear.
But
so no, fortunately nobody was hurt, right? At the end of the day, that is the only good news that came out of this article. It's another black eye on the industry. We keep fighting to try and help, make the industry look better day in, day out. And, so like I said, at least we can take solace and nobody was injured. They caught the people responsible. They'll face their day in court and the world keeps turning without them.
Yeah.
It's just too bad about the reputation. Like that's what kills me every time I read an article like this. It doesn't matter how hard you guys work. The story like this comes out, and I know being on the media side of things, bad news spreads a lot faster than good news.
Oh, 100%. This will get much more traction than any article that has come out since then involving an operator doing a good deed.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of those in the first place.
No. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's one of the reasons why we started the show is to, try to elevate the industry. And unfortunately, we don't always like to talk about the negatives, but there's a lot of negatives in this industry. And unfortunately, it's just what we kind of have to talk about.
Towing is a career full of different situations, from vehicles missing a wheel to having none at all. A great operator learns to use all the tools in both his physical and mental toolbox. I'm here today to tell you about a new, exciting tool to add to your physical toolbox, the BakPul hitch. Like many people on the internet, I had my doubts about this product. Doubts I personally aired on this podcast. But the fine folks over at BakPul Hitch sent me one of their products to try, and boy, was I surprised. Its quality of build and ease of use made me eat my words real quick. So if you're a doubter like I was, head over to BakPulHitches.com for more information and to find out how to add another tool to your toolbox. That's BakPul Hitches.com.
So, G, what is it you wanted to talk about? You wanted to fight with me about how to recover vehicles? Is that it, or ask my opinion?
Well,
you were looking to learn today.
I don't really give a crap about your opinion. No one else's opinion matters, you know. But yes, coming into the winter season, I find myself gravitating more to like mini J's. Now I know, especially when we had the fine folks from BA on our show, they talked about tip loading these hooks and using hooks improperly. And I'm about to talk about using my equipment improperly.
Oh. We are really striving to bring professionalism to the industry, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, I know I am not the only one because I did not come up with this on my own accord. But you know, the steel rims with all the mini little holes in the rim, one of those mini J hooks just perfectly into there. So if you get a car down the ditch, I find a lot of times, especially you get some trees, you get the snowpack, you got to go digging for a control arm or a solid place to hook onto. And a lot of these newer cars, the strongest part to hook onto to do any sort of pulling is normally the rim, tire, that combination, right? A lot of the control arms, you can't put chain on it, so then you're into a strap, and in the wintertime they're frozen and stiff, and it's a right pain in the rear end. So for these steel rims, you put one of your mini J's on one of the rims, and I personally run a twin line, so then I could put one on the rear as well, and I can slide the car perfectly sideways up the ditch and back onto the road. Now, the downfall to that is normally you got to take up a fair bit of the roadway, depending on the size of shoulder that you have to work with. But I find it gives me a lot of control over the car. I don't have to worry about tree branches coming underneath and ripping a bumper forward or backwards, and I can like shimmy the car up and I can control where it goes and how it comes up. And it's very controlled. It's normally pretty quick too. And I don't have to worry about having someone in the vehicle to steer or for me to walk back and forth to the steering wheel to help steer the car out, then back to my controls, because unfortunately I don't personally have a remote for my winch. Now, this is also from a wrecker driver's point of view, to where I have the height with a boom in the bed. And then with a bed, it's a little bit harder to do that, especially normally only having the single line. But two mini J's with the clevis hooks on the other side, one in each rim, pull the car out. I find that's normally the safest and easiest way to do it.
Okay. I hope I don't get cut off while I'm doing this, because I missed part of that, obviously, driving down the road in Canada. Cell phone spotty happens. The only main argument I have on everything that you just said of what I heard was that I remember going back to your mention of Heavy Rescue 401, Colin, in his I want to say it was season 1, did something similar where he just slid the car over on the shoulder to get it back over onto the road. Yeah. And he was criticized everywhere. Now, do I like the idea? Have I done it? Where I've put a mini J into a steel rim? Yes. But you're talking about full-on recovery down in ditch grabbing it. I think you're asking for trouble.
Really?
I truly think that you are asking for trouble doing that. I mean, if we're talking just, sliding a car on a flat surface across, getting it up that last little bit, whatever, little things like that. I get what you're trying to do by doubling up, meaning running your twin line, so you're spreading out the pressure, you're not pulling all on one. But you're still, that's not what those rims are made for. I know they fit, but I mean, I feel like you're opening yourself up. If I'm doing a recovery out of a ditch with branches, with snowpack, it's going to be a little easier to just do that. Do your happy strap, as I like to call it, your basket strap on the wheel, get it out. I think you'll take a risk. Being lazy and taking a risk. That's my opinion. I'm not saying I haven't done
No,
it.
yep,
I'll make a
I
hypocrite
get
of
it.
myself again.
I get it. Like I always feel bad every time I do it until that car comes out nice, and I was like, that was easy. That was so easy. And the customer's always like, wow, that was quick. It was like, as fast as you go in, we can get you right back out again normally. And
That's fair. Like I said, there's times where there's a use for it,
yeah,
right? The 3 wheels or 2 right side wheels in the ditch, and you're just kind of getting it back up onto the roadway.
yeah,
Not so bad, a little bit less resistance. But if you're starting to drag it through those ditches with a couple feet of snow like we get here, especially now with snow and the mud and everything else thrown at it, oh
yeah.
man,
I
you're
mean,
starting
I've
to
put
really
a
build up that
fair
resistance as you go.
I've done some pretty hard pulls, a lot harder than what I'd like to admit, with those little mini J's into steel rims, and I've never once seen one of those bend. Now, granted, my winches are they're 8,000 pound winches, so I don't know. I've never double lined one to a mini J. I think that's asking for trouble. If you need to snatch block it to get it out, you're definitely asking for
Yeah,
trouble there.
for sure.
But I don't know. I've had nothing but success so far, knock on wood, with that method. And I've also had very good success with using my 2 foot long axle straps through aluminum rims. Like you grab 2 or 3 spokes and you just go through the rim and
Yeah,
then you hook it back.
absolutely. The straps through the rims. I've done it with endless loops. I've done it with axle straps. As long as you're doing it properly, that you are pulling on the hub
Hmm.
and not on the individual spokes, right? That is what you got to watch. Even when I do training with the guys, it's not a lot of times on a 5-spoke rim. You've got to be at least through 3 of them
Yeah.
to make it that the pressure is being put on the hub, not on the actual individual spoke, because those will break fairly easily.
Yeah, like I run 2 foot long axle straps for that reason because I know you can get like the foot or 6 inches ones, and that's the only use for them. But I'm a firm believer of having less amount of equipment on my truck, but more tools that can do multiple jobs. Is it right? It
Then get
really
rid.
depends on the operator, but it works for me and it saves a bit of space in my truck.
So let me ask you, what could go wrong?
So the only real thing that could go wrong with the axle strap is really if it's already compromised. The normal thing that goes wrong that's more like a hiccup is once you get the car out, the rim's kind of turned and the strap gets stuck in between the rim and the brake caliper. So then you got to drive the car forward or backwards just a foot or two to be able to get your strap back out. Normally with the D-ring there, it normally gets caught and you can't quite fit it by. That's the only thing that's ever really happened to me. Once again, you're still, as long as you're pulling off the hub itself, you're pulling off the strongest part of the car, and you're pulling the car sideways. So even if you don't want the wheels to turn, so now you're just skating on the sidewall of the tire, so you're not actually moving with the tread of the tire. So there's a lot less resistance. And with me, with the wrecker, I can get a lot more height, so I'm not pulling up a bunch of snow. I'm kind of like leaving the snow behind. So 9 times out of 10, it's not as much weight that I've got to deal with, like added resistance onto the vehicle itself. So realistically, if you are doing it with like a mini J, you always run the risk of breaking that mini J if you're not keeping up with the maintenance or saying this should be pulled out of service. But as long as you got new, not even new, but good equipment that's taken care of, as long as you're working within your working load limits, what can go wrong? We know things will go wrong, but as long as your equipment's good, then what else can you really do?
Well, I think those might be the
Well,
two main points, is that your
G-
equipment is in good working condition. Sorry, Plain Guy, I'm going to keep cutting you off here. Well, I think it comes down to if your equipment's in good condition and you're working within your working load limit, aren't you kind of playing it safe already there?
Well, you are now, especially with like the mini J's, it's not their intended use, right? So you could be, in theory, the working load limit is designed for its intended use. So once you move that weight on how the hook is positioned, the working load limit is not really a factor anymore because you don't know. That's not how it was tested for, right? So working within your working load limit's fine, but if you've tip loaded that hook so much, then is it really rated for that anymore? Right? So it's always, you got to play stuff by ear. More so with the straps, you're in a lot better spot because they're designed to be in a basket and pulled on, or like as in length, or as a basket or anything like that. It's normally got on the tag different working load limits for different positions.
So the argument would be that there's already a piece of equipment that can do this for you. Why would you be using this J hook? And your argument is kind of, well, I don't know. Like, this is kind of interesting because you have this tow equipment. We talk about the creative side of the towing industry. And if you found another way that is working for you, even if it's not the intended use of the piece of equipment, I don't know.
It's like a 4x4 can be your best friend. It could be an axle stand. It could be a wheel chock. It could be so many things. It could be a piece of cribbing with your endless loop idea, with your fancy strap around the whole tire assembly that PlainGuy was going on about. If you got to put lift into that, you can put a 4x4 in there to keep the strap away from like the fender of the car. A 4x4 block of wood's got so many uses on a tow truck. Right? It could be a ramp on a flatbed, or cribbing to get a car off a culvert, or whatever the case may be. At my axle strap that I carry on my truck, or multiple axle straps, I think I got 5 on my truck total. They don't take up too much room. So once they get to, once the actual sleeve of them starts to rip, I throw them in a toolbox and I have them there as like a spare if I need one for whatever reason. Now, is that ideal? No, because it's already seen some wear and tear, and now you're putting it in the ditch again. But in the real world, shit like that happens day in and day out. I can sit here and say, oh, yeah,
That's a
you need
great
all brand
argument.
new equipment, and everything needs to be pristine and not oil soaked. And I get that. That's perfect. In the ideal world, yes. But that's not what happens out on the road.
If you're using the argument of, oh, it's only got a slight tear, so I'm going to throw it in my toolbox and only use it just in case, that is a shit argument, in my opinion. I've managed to hear all of this mainly, but my service has been spotty at best. But, gee, if you want to talk about having less tools in your toolbox, then why not just go to an endless loop? An endless loop can do everything your axle strap can do and more. So if you want to get rid of, save space for tools like you're talking about, throw an endless loop in there, and it can act as, you can then do your pull by your wheel. You can still feed it through the spokes of an alloy rim. You can, still grab an A-arm if you're worried about grabbing a CV boot, right? That's the one thing you got to watch with J-hooks, especially when doing recoveries with wheels turned. Loading a car is fine. Recovery work with J-hooks on A-arms, I know you've been there before where you've pulled that J-hook out and it's got grease on the tip. And you go, damn it, I know what I did.
Yeah.
Right? All of the arguments I keep hearing, I hate to say it because I've said it before to you, come down to laziness. Is it the real world? Yes. But is it the proper way that we should be doing things? No. You drive cars onto a flatbed, right? You still do that?
No, I don't.
No, you don't drive. Okay, then congratulations on taking a step in the right direction, and I do applaud you. It's not sarcastic, but these are all things that every time we talk about it, 1,000 times you can do it. You're like, I've pulled it heavy before, and nothing's broke. That's the mentality that the towing industry has.
Yeah, like I get the endless loop thing, and to be honest with you, I just really haven't had too much exposure with endless loops. Like I've always used straight straps, and even when I did my roadside training, they just put 2, I think 8-foot straps together with a fancy over under thing in the middle and made your own endless loop. Which, to be honest with you, I should really go out and buy endless loops because the more I see about it, the more I hear about them, it's definitely something I'm lacking in personally is the endless loop on my truck. The only thing that the endless loop, or not, sorry, a standard chain going back to your question, Sarah, like what other tools would you have? The only other thing would be the endless loop or like a basket around the tire to pull a car out sideways. Because if you've got to use a chain and go to any of the suspension components, then you're going to be putting a twisting force on that tire trying to pull it sideways out. Right? So you have to go off the tire or the rim itself. So you're pulling the whole thing out and not pulling up or down on the tire. Right?
Or use your mini J's the way they're meant to be used and go find the slots on the body or on the car.
Unfortunately, a lot of times those aren't really structural anymore, and you can have some bad days with those.
That is true. That I can't argue with. But when
And
they are,
especially if you are
they would
laying
be
down in
my
the ditch,
go-to.
reaching underneath, and you find a hole, and you're like, "Oh, that's the right hole," and you start putting a bit of pressure on it, and next thing you know, that hook comes flying at you, and you just ripped apart that body. No thanks.
I'll take my glove off and stick my finger in and double check you. I don't care if it's minus 40 and full of snow. But I mean, yeah, there's ways to get stuff out. I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong, G. I'm just saying that there's ways that might be safer.
Oh, there's always
And,
safer ways
again,
to do things. Always.
Before I got booted out for bad service or spotty service, it was like I said, that's the mentality of the towing industry. I've been doing it 100 years this way. Why would I change? Well, just like vehicles are changing, just like everything is changing, recovery techniques are changing as well with it, and we need to make sure that we're keeping up with it.
Yeah, it's our industry is ever changing, and we're seeing that with paper bills and recovery techniques and even fuel cards. Like I know I personally have dealt with a couple of different companies that have had actual like credit cards that you take out for fuel, and you can just get fuel wherever you want. And I've also worked with a company where they've only got an account with one gas station, so if you're out of town, you're SOL and you're putting your own money into that truck to fill it up before you can get back to town.
That is such a terrible system. I'm sorry. I sound man. Everything I'm talking about today just sounds absolutely negative. But
Oh, you're fighting with everything.
fuel cards are
That's what the show is supposed to be about.
But no, you need to have at least a backup system in place. Like we currently have 2 fuel cards. So if you're in an area where one doesn't work, or well, hopefully the other one is. I mean, it's still not a perfect system, but it's a system. What drives me nuts on this whole fuel debate is there is nothing worse than getting into a truck at the beginning of a shift, whenever. It doesn't matter when it is. And that thing is on empty or close to it. Right? We have a system. We've talked about the system that we have at work where there's a whole driver point system based on number of calls, types of calls. It pretty much promotes productivity. But it also discourages situations like if I do a random spot check in the morning or even, throughout the day, and I hop in a truck and it has under half a tank of fuel, the driver's dock points towards that program. And because there's got to be some accountability. What happens if a guy's got to go to a priority call 30, 40, 50 kilometers away where a person's locked in a vehicle? Whatever the situation is, and that guy's got to stop and get fuel for it. These trucks should never be running under half a tank, period. Right? We have enough fuel stations. There's enough time in between calls. It takes 2 minutes to fuel up. There's no excuse for it. And it is so frustrating. So what do you guys do? Like if you hop in a truck and there's under half a tank, is there any repercussions for it if you leave your truck parked like that at the yard?
Not really. There's not normally any repercussions. Downfall to the singular gas station setup is, especially if that gas station closes at, 8 p.m. every day, and that singular gas station, the one that company uses, is just for the points that is awarded to the owner at the end of the month, and it'll go to buy them a barbecue or something at the end of the year. So that is the only gas station way that company is allowed to fill up at. It does have some big drawbacks, especially if you're still sharing trucks, which that company does. It means the part-time night guy is pretty much relying on having a full tank of fuel to get him through the shift. So when the full-time guy comes back in the morning, his truck's always going to be low on fuel regardless, because the nighttime guy has no opportunity to fill up that truck.
Imagine having a guy on shift that could not fuel a truck.
Yeah.
I would go nuts.
Yep.
I would so not the shit on any companies or the way anyone does anything. Hey, obviously, like we've said, the towing industry goes on. Well, I've been doing it this way for 50 years, so there's no need to change. I mean, I think it's something every company should look into their fueling situation at least monthly, especially with the price of fuel right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not monthly, but every quarter at least, and trying to find ways to improve things. You know, I get it. Fuel cards come with costs and come with different things. There's it's not as simple as here's fuel,
Yep.
but I mean, you got to look at the practicality of the drivers and little things like that. Like if I'm a guy working on a night shift and hey, I need fuel. Oh, too bad you can't get any, or you have to pay out of your pocket. I'm with how hard it is to find guys right now. I'm not exactly sure that's the message I would want to send to a new guy. And I know personally, so don't come looking for me for a resume anytime soon. I would not put up with it.
Yeah, like especially shopping around, because if you've got a fleet of 2 to 4 to 6 trucks, how much money are you spending on fuel in a year, right? Go around to even local gas stations and say, like, hey, this is how much money I spent in fuel last year. Would you like my business? And would you be able to knock off a couple of extra cents per liter? What kind of cards or offers or programs do you have available, right? And will you be my main supplier? Perfect. You go there for all your normal fuel, but then have another gas station or two and say, hey, can I get a special card to where I might only get 2 to 3 cents off per liter of diesel, where the other guy's offering you 5. So at least if that gas station is out of diesel, which happens from time to time, or their one diesel pump goes down, at least all your other guys can go to that other gas station. And sure, you're not saving as much money that day, but over the course of the year, you're still going to be saving more because you're getting 5 cents off a liter at your main gas station compared to what you were getting 3 cents off per liter, right?
Oh, and you don't need your drivers to finance your fuel for the day if they're out of town.
Yeah.
That's what for me it comes back to. It comes back to the driver. Like you can look at it from the company side too, but
it's also like, okay, cool. You know just as well as I do, the Dodge 5500s have some pretty small gas tanks, right? And
I hope you don't have a gas tank on your Dodge.
Fuel tank. Sorry, I always try to say fuel and I screwed up there. Anyways, so a lot of those Ram 5500s, their fuel tanks hold maybe 80 liters of fuel at best. At best. So you're looking at maybe 400 kilometers to a tank. If you're towing something a little on the heavy side, less. If you get a 230 kilometer tow, you need to make sure you are absolutely filled before you go and pick up that car or vehicle, or even better, fill up after you've already loaded it. And then by the time you get back to town, where are you heading? A gas station.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything else because you're running on E. It's not super great. If you could stop and fuel up while you're down there and dropping, at least now you're coming back into town with fuel and the ability to do other things.
That is my biggest flaw with those Dodge trucks is the fuel tank, and they are very hard on fuel.
Yeah.
And they tend to normally have smaller fuel tanks just because of the setup that they need in order to install the wrecker on the chassis.
Mm-hmm.
You're going with that mid-shift fuel, it's just not as practical. I gotta say, as I sit here driving my Western Star, this thing's got a 100-gallon tank. I'm not saying it gets great fuel mileage by any means. I'm just saying I can go pretty far before I even have to think about fueling
Yeah,
up.
you're probably still running around that 20 liters per 100 mark.
Not even close. I'm more like 28.
Wow. Yeah, but you're hauling
Yeah.
cans and stuff with that truck a lot, and a lot of heavier stuff. If you're doing your day-to-day cars and pickup trucks, you'd probably get it down to that 20 mark.
Well, I don't do my day-to-day cars with this thing because I don't think that's what this kind of equipment is built for.
True.
I've got Hinos and Dodges and to do that kind of work.
Yep.
The Western Star is, I mean, hey, everyone's got a spare truck. But no, going back to your fuel debate, like I said, you pick on me for saying your town is 30 people, but your fuel system sounds like somebody on a deserted island that there's only one gas station on the island.
So wait. TowManG, what is your fuel system? How does your company work?
Singular gas station. We've got a backup gas station that's like
it sounded like you were talking from
away.
experience.
Yeah,
yeah.
Our backup fuel station is 25 kilometers away out of town, and I've asked the owner this before. It's like, if I need to go 50 kilometers away, like in a straight shot, and I'm passing this backup gas station, would you rather me stop and get fuel there, or would you rather me backtrack a total of 50 kilometers to get fuel at our main station in our town? And they're like, I'd much rather you backtrack and get fuel at our own station than use.
You're going to get fired for your opinion on your own company. Never give a company opinions on your own company.
Yeah. That's what
I'm still looking for a guy for winter. I'm still looking for a guy. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. If you, the listener, would like TowManG to come work with me.
And if you're watching on the YouTube side of things, watch what you say, because then it might just be Sarah up here, because the next show that we do, I might be in a truck as well.
There, I don't know what that means, but okay.
I'm just going to be moderating between you two on the job.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Our system runs a two, like I said, our company runs a 2 fuel card system. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it doesn't have its moments too.
Yep.
But it does, we use 2 bigger producers, and one of them covers a lot more east as we go into, Quebec and everything else. There's a lot more options there. The other one's pretty well all over the place. I won't name any names. But it helps, the drivers, like, we know when we go on long trips, I can tell you my fuel stops, right? Our guys have got it almost down pat. If I'm going to Toronto, I'm stopping here, I'm stopping here on the way up and probably here on the way back, kind of thing. That way, I always like to come back to town, not just for the side of I don't like running, low on fuel, but I also like that not having to fuel up the first thing I have to do when I get back.
Yeah.
I would rather fill up on the road, so if I'm coming back late at night, I can park the truck, I'm still over half a tank, or if I'm coming back, I want it when my truck gets back into town, he's not bypassing calls to head for fuel.
Yeah.
He's gotten the fuel directly on the route, and he is ready to go as soon as he gets back.
Yeah, he doesn't have to drive all the way to the north end of town, past 3 calls sitting in the south end of town just to get fuel.
Exactly. So, yeah, and sometimes you can sneak some of those in, but you know how it goes. The time you try and do it will be the time it turns into something else. And then have I ran out of fuel in a tow truck? 100%. Have I almost ran out of fuel in a tow truck? 100%.
Yeah.
I remember one time running out of fuel, and I told my boss I was on one side of the highway at our usual fuel station, which happened to be down. There was something wrong with their pumps. It was a diesel truck stop. All their pumps were down. He told me, just go across the highway to the other one. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to make it. He didn't believe me because, it's half a kilometer just over the overpass.
Yeah.
I just stalled out on the top of the overpass, rolled, came up about 50 feet short of the pump. That's how well I knew that truck and knew how close I was running it at that point, that I said I wasn't going to make it, and I didn't. I had to get a truck there to pull me up to the pump and then sit and prime the damn GM. Oh, it was a nightmare. Don't run out of fuel. It's not worth it.
Even like a couple of our Freightliners, if you're loading on the side of a road and just the angle of the truck, since the pump is on the driver's side, all the fuel will run to the passenger tank and they'll stall out,
right.
And you have to tow them back onto level to prime them again.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, I've definitely encountered that with guys before. I think we got through everything we wanted to get through. I'm just rolling back into town. God knows what I got to get on. Rolling back into town with 3/4 of a tank of fuel.
Perfect.
I need DEF fluid, though. I do need DEF fluid.
Yeah, you need the government juice.
The government juice in a drink box thingy. But yeah, so I think it was great. Sorry I missed out on a bunch of it. It could have been for the better. Who knows?
Yeah.
But on behalf of myself the ever amazing producer Sarah, and this other guy that, tows every once in a while,
Yeah.
Mr. TowManG. I want to personally thank you guys for coming out. I know it was fun. I got to get back to work. I can't wait to see you all again next week. Don't forget, head over www.towinglife.ca. Take care.
Toodles.
Bye.
I love it that you could. I looked at my watch and I'm like, Sarah said 3:30. And my watch might be out of sync right now, so I haven't synced in a bit. But
I was looking at the time and I'm like, yep, we got 45 minutes in there. It's time to go.
Yeah.
I have to go.
Yeah.
To